Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news. Ralf Rangnick making Manchester United put their manager search on hold as they consider giving him the permanent job. Paul Pogba, absolutely key to United's season now, despite being a player that is a contract rebel. We'll also be talking about comments from Kieran Trippier, as well as what the latest is around Manchester United transfer news at the moment, with 4 days left. 4 days left, 4.5 days left in the transfer window. So lots to get into this morning. I just want to say as well, first of all, I think a lot of people are going, we're not going to do any transfer business. We're not going to do any transfer business. Arsenal and Spurs have not done any transfer business yet, and they will do. So if they're going to do business, then there's still chance that we can do business. I understand people getting negative. It is United at the end of the day. And if I'm absolutely honest, Manchester United in the transfer window do remind me of a Christmas at Turkey. We get mentioned a lot, a hell of a lot, but end up getting stuffed, and it doesn't end good for us, does it? So the reality is, I do think that there is a chance, but there's also a chance we do nothing. I accept that. What we need to see happening, and sorry I'm a little bit late, a lot of people talking about Kent, massive day for TUSFC in our FIFA career mode this afternoon at 3 o'clock, FA Cup final day. So I was a little bit late because I'd forgotten to put my shirt in the wash. So wash, dryer and iron by 3 o'clock. That's my deadline day today. But looking forward to that. Anyway, let's come back to reality. So look, we're going to start. Look, transfers can happen, but I want to start off with this story about Ralf Rangnick because I really want to know what you think while I give you my opinion on what I think. So this came out last night. It's I'll quote the Twitter account I read it on, MUFC MPB. Manchester United board are interested to see what Ralf Rangnick can achieve between now and the end of the season. A top 4 spot will go a long way to securing him the manager's job on a permanent basis for the next 2 years. Man United have put their search for a new manager on hold, with Ralf Rangnick impressing the club chiefs with the way he's steadied the ship. Where's it coming from? It's coming from The Sun, but it's coming from Neil Custis. And I've said this for years. I don't do agenda, arrogance or anything like that. I don't. If somebody's given good information in the past, I don't think you can dismiss it. And Custis has been very close to Manchester United for many years. And he does have good connections. He doesn't always get it right, but he does have good connections. And, you can't just dismiss it because he writes for The Sun. So, and also, you know what? At the end of the day, it's all about what you think and what you want to believe at the end of the day, isn't it? Or if you just want to think about it as a potential issue or good thing. It would not surprise. This would be typical of Manchester United. Can I just say, I would, regardless of what was written in that article, I would not be surprised if Manchester United gave Ralf Rangnick the permanent job. In fact, if you want a percentage, I'd say it's 50-50, which is still pretty big considering we're meant to be getting a permanent manager in the summer. And the reason I think it's 50-50 is this. Manchester United, like a manager, they can manipulate that will basically be a puppet and do the things they want to do. Well, what's Ralf Rangnick done over the last 6 weeks? Part of being competent, so far, he's spent no money. So far, he's raised the money by players leaving. The results have been reasonably good. And ultimately, it's a job for the boys, isn't it? They've got to know him. They like him. They love to promote people that they know. Murtagh got the director of football job having been there for years. Fletcher's come back to the club to get a technical director job with no CV. Arnold is replacing Woodward, who's been understudy to Woodward for nearly a decade. So United love to appoint puppets who they know. That's the United way. I was watching The Mandalorian on Boba Fett last night. This is the way. This is the United way. Forget the United way and the DNA that we like. This is the way under the Glazers. Promote from within for people who have the same vision of you, which is basically make money for this club and don't want to buy loads of players, etc. So Rangnick getting the best out of a team that was losing 4-1 to Watford and losing to Leicester and Liverpool and being humiliated, getting those same set of players to get results. United will be like this. We don't want a new manager who wants to rebuild the squad. We'll use this one. It'll be a much cheaper. And that's the bottom line with Manchester United. Whatever you think about Rangnick, and I'll talk about the merits in a minute. There are merits to giving him the job. That he shouldn't be dismissed from the job if he does really well. But let's not forget and let's not pretend that really behind this we don't have a board that's about football. If this was Bayern Munich or this was Liverpool and they were going, we're really impressed with Rangnick, we want to give him the job, you'd go, they're a switched on football club that wants to be good on the pitch. I don't really think that Rangnick shouldn't be considered for the job. But the people who are changing their mind, I don't trust them. They're business people or they're incompetent people. So when they go, oh, we're impressed with Rangnick, they won't be impressed with Rangnick for the right reasons. They'll be impressed with Rangnick because they're incompetent and there's a money angle there, and they see him as, oh, he's one of the lads, So that's my concern. Mark, if Ralph takes the job, then we will get a CDM. Also, Phelan Fletcher will have to go, says Andy and Bruno. Well, they won't be going anywhere. Would I give Rangnick the job? I really like Ralph Rangnick. I'm not gonna. I stayed with Mourinho for a long time. I stayed with Ollie for a long time, and I was very, very, very critical of both managers when I decided. I felt very let down. I think sometimes when you stick with a manager, a lot of you with Mourinho were out about 6 months before I was. A lot of you with Ollie were out about 6 months before I was, and I think I probably felt it worse than you because you'd got used to it for longer, and I felt more betrayed because I'd given them longer, and then they let you down. So, I don't tend to jump quick unless it's someone like David Moyes, who I never wanted in the first place. There's a lot of merits to Ralph Rangnick. I like his vision on football. He does want to play a brand of football that is exciting. I think some of the things he's done at United over the last month have been a breath of fresh air, dropping certain players and not taking any crap, being a little bit honest in interviews. I didn't agree with the Martial thing, I didn't agree with the Ronaldo thing, I don't really agree with what he said about Lingard, but actually I don't disagree with it in the sense that he can't say it. It's just new and refreshing in a way. So look, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I think my issue is, and the reason United would want him is because if we get Ralph Rangnick, we're not getting Ralph Rangnick. If we were appointing Ralph Rangnick in the summer and we were desperate for Ralph Rangnick, he would come into the job and say, okay, I need free rein on transfers, I need free rein on removing players. If we were getting Ralph Rangnick in those circumstances, like we would hope we might get a Pochettino or a Ten Hag or whoever in the summer, then I'd probably say yes. But I don't like this. When you get an interim, they're basically beholden. This is my problem. This is what happened with Ollie, and this is what will happen with Rangnick. And it's not Rangnick's fault. I don't want Rangnick to be the coach because when you become an interim manager, you're basically like Duncan Ferguson at Everton. You're a caretaker manager. And a caretaker manager is never the right choice. They're there to steady the ship. So if you give Ralph Rangnick the job as interim coach, he's there to steady the ship. He's not there to come in and go, I want this, I want that, I want this transfer budget, I want him out the club. He comes in, steady the ship. When you come in as a new manager in the summer, you're not there to steady the ship. Conte's not there to steady the ship at Spurs, and he didn't come in the summer. He's there to, I'm the manager, I'm in charge. You're out, you're in, give me some money. That's what United need. We don't need another manager that comes in as an interim to help the board out, becomes friends with the board, does things to make the board happy, and then the board give him the job, because he becomes a bitch to the board, which is what Ollie was. So that's why I don't want Rangnick, because whatever he does in the future will always have this interim period that defines him, which is basically, what do you want, Fletcher? What do you want, Murta? What do you want, Arnold? What do you want, Woodward? What do you want? And that is not going to make us successful. We need a manager that we need. We need a manager where Richard Arnold's negotiating with him. He's like, I'm not sure I want the job. I might wait for City. I might go for Liverpool. And we've got to go, no, come to United. You can have this. You can have that. We've done it with Ollie. Look at what we've done on our last few managers. Van Gaal, Mourinho didn't really get what they want. They got some things, but they didn't get everything. They gave one arm behind the back. Ollie would have took that job for a £5 a week. He was desperate for the job. Anything you want. Remember when the fans broke into Carrington and they weren't happy with the Glazers, and Ollie was apparently telling them that they're good people. Like, Ollie backed the board. We don't need another manager who is going to be completely in the pocket of the board. That's not... I've followed football for years. Most managers don't. They have an okay relationship with the board, but there has to be conflict because you've got different ideas. So that's why I wouldn't go for Rangnick as a permanent, because I think the relationship already is too cosy when you're an interim, and you're too focused on what's good for the board and not what's good for the fans. And that's just how I feel. But I do like Rangnick, but I just don't like the circumstances. He will get a job if deserved in the end, not now, says Jay. And look, I wouldn't give it him if he gets 4th place. I wouldn't. For the same reasons. It's not about where we finish in the league. It's about, we need a manager with power. And anybody who says, well, if he gets top 4 and win a trophy, you've got to give him the job. Well, I'll assess that then. But you're asking me right here, right now. He hasn't got the power. He hasn't got the power. Where's the midfielder that he's wanted for 6 weeks? Where is it? And the reason United will be thinking about giving him the job is because, he's asked for a midfielder. We haven't given him one and he's still doing okay. They'll love all that. Anyway, we'll see what happens. To be fair, Mark, you have to be able to get along with the board of any club. If you don't, you wouldn't get the job. I disagree, Ike. I totally disagree. I don't think that a manager should be a bitch to the United board. They're incompetent. They've been proven to be incompetent. And if you're good enough, they'll be desperate to get you. I don't think Daniel Levy and Conte are going to get on really well. I don't think Tuchel and Abramovich get on brilliantly. I don't think Klopp gets on with his board all the time. There's got to be respect for the manager and making the manager happy, and we've never really had that from our board because it's all about them. But Red says no manager's going to obtain that power overnight, if ever. I agree with you, Red Olsen, exactly. So if you're going to have any power at United, you've got to have it from day one. The manager probably with the most power at United since Sir Alex Ferguson was Mourinho, because we were sort of desperate for him, and at the start it worked quite well, but then player power and the board got fed up with him and sort of stabbed him in the back, didn't they? And the football wasn't good enough. But you've got the ideal situation is that United are desperate for a Zidane or a Ten Hag or a Pochettino in the summer, and those managers say, I'm not sure, and they're like, what can we do to convince you? And those managers go, I want my own coaching team, I want a big say on who's leaving this summer and a big say who's coming in, and I want that every summer for the next 3 years. That's what we need. We don't want another puppet who's like trying to... ultimately, Rangnick is trying to impress the board. I'll explain my issue in a sentence. Rangnick's trying to impress the board to get the job. We need the board to be impressed and begging someone to come. And that was, I like Rangnick a lot. But in the long term, if you've got a manager who's beholden to the board, trying to impress them, you're just doing Ollie again. And look, obviously Rangnick's way better than Ollie and the results will be better, but we're trying to get to be a Premier League winner. And to do that, the board needs to be beholden to the manager. Like Sir Alex was, like the board was with Sir Alex. Morning, Mark. Too early to give Rangnick the job. I prefer Ten Hag or Poch, says Mikael Roach. And also, I'll say what I said last night, and I think a lot of people will agree with this. I like Rangnick. I don't want him to get the manager's job. The best thing that can happen to United if they're impressed with him is do what we all wanted to happen when he first came in. You give him 6 months to sort the playing staff and the coaching staff out, and then you move him further and further up the club. What I want to see with Rangnick, if you're impressed with him, is he becomes the director of football with a manager underneath him who has the similar sort of style of football to him, Ten Hag, and he's the director of football. Of course, that's not going to happen, but that's what a competent football club would do. Rangnick's really not a manager anymore. He's more of an overseer. So give him 6 months to sort of implement things, which he is, and then move him up with a manager underneath him. But of course, to do that, you've got to remove or dilute the role of Murta and Fletcher, and they won't want that. They want to keep control. They're just Woodwards again. They're just other people who are very lucky to be in a job who want to look after themselves. But a competent football club, if you like Rangnick, would move him into director of football role and have a manager underneath him. That's what I would like to see happen. Really liked Conte, even if it was a shorter term choice, at least he would take full control and remove the board's power in footballing decisions, says Davin. I can't change how I feel, everybody. I'm not confident about United over the next 2 years. I'm very worried about where we're going to be, but hopefully I'll be wrong. Feel like the board are looking at Rangnick and possibly will only want him if he reverts to an Ollie type, complacent and to the board's decisions, says Lil. And of course, let's not forget, Rangnick's cheap. Rangnick's cheap. We haven't got a... he'll be much cheaper than Pochettino. I presume there's compensation for Ajax if we go for Ten Hag, or Enrique for Spain, or Mancini for Italy. So he's really cheap. Also, he probably won't want to bring loads of coaches because he hasn't got loads of coaches to bring, and he's been working with the coaches that are there. I can't believe people don't think United's board really want Rangnick. I'm convinced they do, because he's working with coaches that were Ollie's coaches. And I'm not talking about people like Mike Phelan or anyone like that. I'm talking about the loads of names of people you don't even know. There's probably 20, 30 coaches training United's first team on any given day at Carrington. They would all stay with Rangnick as well. So it's a money. Always look at the money angle with United. Rangnick will be cheap to keep as well. If he gets, I'll guarantee you now, if he gets top four I think Rangnick could be our manager next year. I really do think they'll make that decision. Some of you might agree with it, some of you might not. That's absolutely fine. But from United's point of view, they won't do it from a footballing decision. They'll do it from a money point of view. But of course, it ridicules what they're doing at the moment. Oh, we don't want to buy a midfielder just because we don't know what's going to happen in the summer. Well, you pretty much do know what's going to happen in the summer. If Rangnick gets top 4, you'll keep him because he's cheaper. So give him a midfielder to help him do it. It's always a contradiction. Anyway, Trippier, Kieran Trippier, just very quickly, I won't dwell on this for long. Please smash a like on the video. Kieran Trippier has been speaking about last summer. He said, Manchester United were interested in him, and ultimately they didn't want to pay the release clause for someone who was 30, which he understands, but there was definite interest from Manchester United, and very big interest. I think we all knew that was the case, and I'm just very glad we didn't do that deal. I'm so glad we didn't do that deal. Typical United, overpay for English talent who's actually a bit overrated. Kieran Trippier is a good right back, but I don't see Man City or Liverpool queuing up to buy him, or Chelsea. He's not that good. He's not a top 4 right back. He's he was the Spurs right back. That's what he is. He's not anywhere near a top 4 right back. He's not even in the top 5 right backs in England as far as I'm concerned. There's 5 right backs better than him. So why United were going for him, I've got no idea. Tom says he's better than Dalot and Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I disagree. I really do disagree. I think he's got a good cross on him, and I think he's an okay right back. And I never wanted him to come to Man United. Nothing against him. I think his level is probably going to be Newcastle for the next couple of years, and Newcastle will probably get up to being a club that's fighting for 6th in the next 2 years. So that will be perfect for him. But I'm so glad we didn't do it. What a typical Ole Gunnar Solskjaer type of signing. Who's got a bloody British passport? Right. Who's a right back? And Dalot, to me, the only reason I wanted to mention Trippier, and all the best to him. I think he's a United fan anyway, so all the best to him at Newcastle. But it just highlights recruitment under United. You know where I'm going to go with this. We were close to getting Trippier, who's a right back. And again, where's the midfielder? We were close to buying a right back when we already had 2 and no midfielder. It's just ridiculous how stupid we were last summer in not going for a midfielder, that he wanted to buy another right back and then remove Dalot and send him to Italy. And yet here we are, 6 months later, and Dalot's our first choice right back, getting better and better by the game. It's just ridiculous. And that was meant to be a cultural reset. That was meant to be the new beginning. I'm so glad it's over. I'm so glad it's over, because what we're seeing with Dalot is that proper coaching, there's a player there. And that was always the problem, wasn't it, over the last 3 years? Pick the same players every bloody game, run them into the ground, even if they're injured, and don't develop players because I actually don't know how to do it. So, look, it just highlights that Dalot would have been gone. And then here he is 6 months later, our first choice right back, getting better and better by the game. And it's not the complete article, of course he's not. I mean, look, Rangnick's only been there 6 weeks. Dalot's only been starting really for the last 2 months, and the last 2 months we've had a couple of breaks for COVID and now an international break. So of course he's going to have bad games and good games, but what we're seeing with Dalot is that there is a player there, and with the right development and coaching, there's a very good player there. The concern right now that they are not listening to Rangnick right now, how they're going to listen afterwards, says Jay. Well, that's the whole point. United like managers that they can control, so that when they ask for a player and they say no, the manager just gets on with it. United love that. United love a manager that will just get on with it, whatever. You're not having anybody crack on. United don't want McFred to drop for whatever reason, says Crypto. And what a fall from grace Manchester United have seen, says Stamford. And Tanya is a good man. Ten Hag is a good manager. Okay, says Alvin. Portugal has the best fullbacks in the world. Will Donny and Bay leave United? Well, hopefully we're going to hear about... And again, I always feel weird when I'm saying these words, but hopefully we're going to... I mean, there's no guarantee, but hopefully today or tomorrow we will hear that Donny van der Beek is going to Palace on loan. I mean, it's a loan deal. It's not the end. It's not rocket science. Get the loan deal done. Same with Lingard. Right, I'm going to give you 2 scenarios here. There's lots of other scenarios, but I think there's 2 scenarios here. United will remove players quickly and give themselves a chance on Sunday, Monday to get a midfielder in, or United will drag all these loan deals of Van der Beek and Lingard and maybe another player out all the way until Monday, and that will be their business that they do. I think we all probably think that the second thing will happen, but the reality is that Lingard Newcastle deal could have been done on Tuesday. I think from the Lingard camp, they don't understand how it's not been done, and Newcastle are a bit confused as well. The cynic in me is that United are purposely dragging this out, because what they don't want to do, and we've seen it in loads of other transfer windows before, they don't like to get all their business done quick and then leave 2, 3, 4 weeks left of a transfer window so that people are like, come on then, you've got to bring someone in. And United will be very wary of that, because if they loan these players out too soon, all you'll get all weekend is, why are we not going to get someone in? Why are we not going to get someone in? And they don't want that negativity, because United love social media and they don't want to be negative. They don't want negative there. I may be wrong, but everything, even though we are not good right now, players like Ronaldo with huge mentality can single-handedly win us the Champions League. No, they can't. AS2 skills. Ronaldo played against Leicester. We lost. Ronaldo played against Watford. We lost. Ronaldo played against Liverpool. We lost. There is no single-handedly in the modern game. There is no player that can single-handedly do anything anymore. Ronaldo and Messi used to be able to. They did. 10 years ago, even 6 years ago, Messi and Ronaldo could win a game single-handedly, but they're not those players anymore. They're still unbelievably good players, but they are very reliant on a team around them creating the opportunities for them, especially Ronaldo. So Ronaldo's not doing anything single-handedly. He can't. He needs service. How many games have we said this season Ronaldo's been quiet because he hasn't had any service? So we're not single-handedly doing anything. We've got to find a way to perform as a team, which is what Rangnick's been on about for weeks and weeks and weeks. And that leads on to Paul Pogba. I think maybe now is not the exact time. Thoughts on Herrera coming back for 6 months? I've not heard anything about it. We spoke about it last night. I think if it's nothing or Herrera on loan, I think everyone would take Herrera on loan, but there's absolutely nothing going on about that at the moment. So I wouldn't worry about that. We're playing a week tomorrow, Rahul. We're playing Middlesbrough in the FA Cup a week tomorrow, and then we've got Burnley on the Tuesday, and then we're playing a lot. We're playing sort of every 4 days in February. But I just want to drop Paul Pogba in here, because we've seen this week with Martial leaving the club a bit of a divide in the fan base. Those people who like Martial and those people in our fan base who've basically been holding a party that Martial's going to go. Personally, I didn't want Martial to go, but I don't really have a problem with people who are holding a party. It's all about opinion, and some people just never liked Martial, so that's fine. It's, football's all about opinion, isn't it? The interesting thing is, with Martial gone, Pogba's going to walk into that void. And there's no doubt in my mind, because for the last 6 years it's always been the same. There are some people that really like Pogba, there are some people who are undecided, and there's some people who really don't like Pogba. We've seen Pogba walking off the pitch at Old Trafford being screamed and shouted at by United fans in Old Trafford. He's a divisive player. And what I find quite poetic is that Paul Pogba is probably a massive, massive part of how successful we're going to be this season. And that won't sit right with some fans, and it will be poetic for other fans. What do I think about it? Well, look, if we don't buy a midfielder, if we do buy a midfielder, Paul Pogba's going to have a big part to play because he's Paul Pogba. I think it's multifaceted. I think there's so many levels to this. I think that, first and foremost, I've always been a fan of Paul Pogba the player. I do like Paul Pogba the player. His inconsistencies are frustrating, and we've seen that for 6 years, but I do like Paul Pogba. I don't agree with these people who who go after him all the time. And I think that, whether you like him or not, he is going to be very important for United in the next few months. But there's so many different sort of angles on this. The first thing I would say is that, obviously, I rate Paul Pogba, and I think he's capable of making a big impact on the end of our season if we use him correctly. Buy Pookie and Rice, top 4 secured, says Roop. Okay. But the second thing I would say is, again, it's a bit like the story about Rangnick. It's just typical of United's board, really, that we are not having a good season, that's stabilised under Rangnick, and now we're going into this final 4 months where it's going to be make or break. And ultimately, as part of that make or break, instead of buying a midfielder to help Rangnick out and build something for the future, he's going to be handed a player that doesn't want to be here, who's leaving in the summer. And that player, I wouldn't say he's got our top 4 hopes in his hands, but he is going to be the big sort of addition to the squad in the final months. And that's just typical of United, isn't it? A player that divides the fan base, a player that doesn't want to be here, a player that's got a very big eye on the summer, is now going to be held up as the poster boy for United's season. And it's just typical of brand United. You know, it really is. That they don't see how stupid that is. That a player that's refused to sign a contract, who's running it down, so there's got major choices in the summer, is now going to be rolled out as Pogba's back. Because that's how they treat the fans. They treat you like bloody idiots. They treat you like, what's the social media story today? And, you know, what baffles me about the Pogba situation is I don't want Pogba to stay. And it's not because I don't like Paul Pogba. Anyone who's watched the channel knows I do. I really do. From the day we bought him, I was excited, and I've always tried to give him a chance. You know, he's let us down at times. He's been brilliant at other times. But there's a lot of players like that. You know, he's not the only one, and I think it's always unfair the way Pogba and Martial get treated compared to some of our British players who are as consistent. And look, at the end of the day, people talk about the price tag of Paul Pogba. Harry Maguire was only £9 million less. Like, why, you know, when you're moaning about Pogba, why didn't you, you know, I know people do moan about Maguire now, to be honest, but they didn't. And actually, there's only, you know, oh, it cost £89 million. Yeah, Maguire cost £80 million. So what's your point? But I think the Pogba situation is really dangerous because if I'm Mino Raiola, I'm saying to Paul Pogba, whatever you do, Paul, don't get yourself injured in the next 3 months. There's no World Cup in the summer. And if you go and get a bad injury like an ankle or a Achilles heel or a knee injury that takes you out for the next 7-8 months, that takes you to August, September. Who's going to buy you injured in the summer? That's something to consider because Pogba's going to be playing in big games and a lot of them. How many games will he actually play between now and the end of the season, considering we're going to be playing every 3 or 4 days for 4 months? That's a factor. How many games can Pogba actually play? How many games is he going to put his body through it? You know, quite rightly, if I'm Paul Pogba and I'm out of contract in the summer, do I want to be playing every 3 or 4 days for the next 4 months, knackering myself out, running the risk of an injury? So that's something to factor in here. Of course, the follow-on from that is, what if Pogba does do really well for us, and in March, we're playing in the Champions League quarter-final, let's hope, and, you know, he twists his knee and he's out for 6 months. Oh, where's that 400k a week contract? I'm signing it. You know, United have got a 400k a week contract on the table for Paul Pogba. And if he goes and gets a bad injury, he can just sign it for 3 years. I'm fine, you know. Why is that contract on the bloody table? Remove the bloody contract. You know, why have we left ourselves exposed like that? Because it's about being a brand. United would happily, they probably would see that as a good result. If Pogba got injured and had to sign the contract, they'd be like, yes, we've got brand Pogba for the next 3 years. And that's why that bloody contract's on the table anyway. Why have we got a 400 grand a week contract on the table for Paul Pogba anyway? It doesn't justify that at all for his form over the last 3 years. But United have got it there. It's just an odd situation. And in coming to terms with that odd situation, basically, my mentality is he's going to go in the summer. Let's hope he can play as many games as he can between now and the end of the season, and we use him like he's using us. But let's not pretend the whole situation is just messed up. You know, United with a 400 grand a week contract waiting there that could get signed because he gets injured. A player that wants to leave now becoming such an important player for us instead of buying a midfielder for a position we actually need. It's just the Pogba situation is just really weird to me. And what I would say finally is, can people go show ex-Cardiff player Kevin McNaughton some love on Twitter? His last tweets are very worrying and some positive may go a long way. I've not seen those tweets, but that's from Joshua Bowwater if you want to check that out on Twitter. Kevin McNaughton, ex-Cardiff player. Okay, I will have a look afterwards in relation to that. So yeah, what just to close the Pogba thing, I'll say what I've been saying for a while now. And I've probably been saying this for 2 years. I like Paul Pogba. I think 6 years is long enough for him and us. I think it's time for him to move on. But it doesn't, you know, it's a divorce. It's a divorce, but it doesn't need to be toxic. I think it's an amicable thing. He's been here for 6 years. It's not been the relationship we wanted it to be. He should go off and try and win major trophies somewhere in the last few years of his career. And we should start trying to build something again because we haven't built it over the last 6 years. The worst thing that could happen, and I do like Pogba, But the worst thing that could happen is that he signs another 3 or 4 year contract, because what is that all about? For me, it just exposes Pogba and Raiola as mercenaries, because why would you sign a new contract at United? You've been here 6 years, we've never been near a title, and we're further away than we've ever been. So why would you commit your long-term future to United unless it's about the money? So look, let's just hope he can have a good few months. I think it's important that we get behind him and all our players, but in the summer I think it needs to be part of the ways. Pogba has been inferring that there's no offer on the table, says Humphrey. Now I think there is an offer on the table, Humphrey, and there is an offer on the table, and we know there's an offer on the table, but it's not enough. Pogba and Raiola want a new offer, and they don't like the offer that's on the table. The offer that's on the table is meant to be around £400,000 a week, and they want closer to £500,000 a week, because in the summer he's out of contract, £50 million player, he's going to get big offers. Does this club ever learn? Clearly found themselves another yes man, want Rangnick to succeed, but he hasn't proved anything yet. Worrying, Aram. Well, the next, you know what, the next 6 months, I hate to say it, but the next 6 months are going to be very, very telling. You know, is Richard Arnold just a Poundland Woodward, or is he, you know, just another Woodward, or is he completely different? You know, Murta has been at the club for a very long time. Some people want to, you know, rewrite history and pretend that he came in a year ago as a director of football who knew what he was doing. He's been at the club for a very long time. He got promoted up. Fletcher, you know, we don't know enough about Fletcher. There's no reason to believe anything's going to change at United unless we see change. And I know that sounds like a Michael Owen statement, but it's true. When you look at the people that have been promoted into power, they've all been part of this problem for 6-7 years. Some of them longer. So there's no reason to expect anything to change at United. There's no reason to expect that, you know, dividends are going to stop. The club's going to come out of debt. We're going to start buying in the right areas. We're going to start removing players that aren't good enough. I don't expect anything to change unless we see change. And that's the big thing. And go back to the start of the week where we got that story that, you know, Arnold wants to have conversations with ex-players in the media. The only reason they want to do that is to try and get them on side so that they're not slagging them off, saying that they're rubbish. So, I don't know. I think it's, you know, I think United put a lot of work into PR to spin things instead of actually doing things. You know what? You create your own positive PR by doing positive things. If United go out and if United went and bought a midfielder in the next few days, that will create so much positive PR without having to manipulate people. They should make a reality show with United's board, says Eddie. I don't think we'd ever do an Amazon Prime because I think it would expose the club in a way that they don't want to be exposed. I mean, I've spoken to people who work at United. I've spoken to people who, you know people close to United, and this has been going on for years and years and years. That club is just a shell of what it was under Sir Alex. Like, there's so much incompetence in there, and corner cutting, and, you know, arrogance, and I don't think they'd let Amazon anywhere near it. You know, United on Amazon Prime, you know, an All or Nothing or whatever would be golden. But I don't think United would let them anywhere near it because it would expose just how amateur we are. There we go. So yes, that's where we are with the latest news at the moment. In relation to transfers, it's a little bit quiet this morning. But I think we're on tenterhooks really for an announcement about when Donny's going to go, whether that Lingard thing will actually happen. And, you know, in relation to incomings, I mean, that could happen at any point. It might never happen. I think it's more important that it moves a bit quicker. There is just a story coming in from the chief football reporter from the Daily Mail, who is saying that Crystal Palace accelerate loan move for Donny van der Beek. Positive talks between both clubs have taken place. Still a way to go, but there is hope a deal is possible, which is not really an update because basically that's what Romano said on Tuesday night and yesterday afternoon. So look, hopefully we'll get a development on Donny, but, you know, to be fair, the Donny deal might not happen till Monday. But yeah, that's not really an update because we've been told about that for a while. But as I said, Arsenal and Spurs will be doing some business without a shadow of a doubt. And they haven't done any yet. So there is still time. Thanks everyone for watching. I'll be back at 2 o'clock for another video. And remember, 3 o'clock this afternoon, it's TUSFC FA Cup final day in FIFA Career Mode. I'll have the suit on. It's going to be a big one. If you've never watched it before, make sure you give me a follow on Goldbridge TV. But I'll give you the links off Twitter and on the 2 o'clock show as well. I'm nervous. It's a computer game, but I'm nervous. If I'm, the career mode's quite big, and a lot of people enjoy it. But anyway, in reality, I'll speak to you all in a bit. I hope you have a good day. And thanks everyone for watching.